How long you been doing podcasts?
I started it in February 2020.
Okay. Man.
I think I recorded the first episode a week or two before the lockdown.
Oh, wow.
Really became a passion project when there was literally nothing else to do.
Yeah, I was going live and screaming outside on my back deck. I was like, look, nobody cares. And then just scream. Right? I wish I would have wrote more during the pandemic, though.
Little plug for my book. That's when the majority of my first novel, Switchers, got written. I could only just sit and look at my kids for so long.
So when I looked at your synopsis of Switchers, it said Stranger Things meets the Goonies, and they might be a bastard child of Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that. I might have to go ahead and cop that, man.
Yeah, somebody actually reviewed that, and I was, hey, can I put this review on like all my promotional material? And they're like, yeah, go for it. So
that's what's up.
Yeah, writing your own blurbs is hard, man.
Yeah. I mean, try a bio. You know, go brag about yourself real fast, man.
Yeah, that's why my Instagram bio just says bearded weirdo.
All right.
Welcome to Creative Ops, a podcast for creative people.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Creative Ops. I am your host, Christopher Talon, author of Switchers. Check out the link in the show notes, and that's all I'll say about it this time. Creative Ops is a creative community in a podcast. So as you listen to everyone that's on the show, I hope that you get some information that helps you with whatever area of creativity you work in. And also, I just hope you feel supported by hearing what other people go through professionally and personally and so on. And on that note, today I talked with Foster. We met at the Last Mile Café in Grand Rapids. Try the Last Miel if you like miels. It's absolutely phenomenal. Oh, and also, the Last Mile Café is a Black-owned, female-owned, b-corp certified business, which means that it's like really sustainable. You have to go through a lot to get that b-corp certification. So cool business. Last Mile Cafe. Thank you for letting us do this in there. I talked with Foster from the Diatribe, and we talked about a lot of things. We talked about the Emory. We talked about some of the things that the Diatribe has coming up. We really get to know Foster on a deeper level. But we start with the Emory, which is a transformative space in the city of Grand Rapids, and it's going to be amazing. So I'm going to go ahead and dump into the interview I did with Foster, starting out with the Emory here in Grand Rapids. Please click the show notes, learn more, donate, and get involved. All right, I'll see you on the other side. Just the idea that there's going to be accessible housing that doesn't just take from the people who are living there, but also gives something back is an absolutely beautiful thing. So thank all of you guys for putting that together.
Thank you, man. Yeah, so, man, the Diatribe, us as a unit, man, we came up with the idea of fair housing, right? But not how typical fair housing works, where you have a housing development that gets a discount for subsidized housing pretty much. And, they get the double dip. They take from the government as well as like take it from the people that want to live there. And then they're kind of limited to how long they can stay there at the current rate, right? So like if they start to make more money and then the price goes up, so they never get the budget. So what we're going to do is we're going to have 8 affordable housing apartments. 7 of them are going to be public facing. One is going to kind of be like Airbnb style, where we can like rent it out to like, let's say like a resident artist that comes in, or we've worked with Corwell before. So let's say they have a resident doctor and want to show somebody the live, work, play model. They can come and stay at the Emory in that particular unit. The other 7 are going to be public facing. They are going to have, they're going to be studio, 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom apartment, and they're going to be extremely affordable. We're going to set the price at either like $600 or $700 for like the studio, $800 to $900 for the 1 bedroom, and then $1,000 or $1,100 for like the 2 bedroom.
Yeah.
But our kicker is we're going to limit how long people can stay there to 3 years. And the reason we're doing that is because we want people to improve their status. So in those 3 years, you're going to be asked to take 3 classes, credit building and repair. We're also going to do a financial literacy class. And then the third one is a home ownership class. If you do those 3 classes, you get equity back from renting. So you can either get $3,600, $4,800, or $5,400 back, and you can use it either to make yourself more competitive for housing, for the housing market in like the 49507. That's what we want people to like invest in, because there's been disinvestment for, close to 100 years. Or you can use it for your artistry. And let's say you want to travel the world. Now you have some backup money. Let's say you want to put a down payment on a different place. You have this backup money to go with you. We just want to flip that on its head as far as the Emory goes. We're also going to have some retail locations in there. We're going to have 4 retail locations. We have a print shop, we have a recording studio, we have a cafe and bookstore, and then we're going to have a visual art studio. So let's say like somebody wants to learn how to put murals on there. They can go in there and talk to somebody in the Diatribe office from the hours of 7 to 3, go over to the retail, talk to one of the artists, or they want to learn about photography. That'll all be available. Not to mention those small retail locations, we're going to be able to let them leverage the nonprofit so that they can work with some of our youth and like how we get our grants and everything. Let's say we can get them grants and show them how to work. And then maybe also we can be like some of the fiduciaries for them as well. We want to grow together, especially in the 49507. There are things that are missed, but we want to make sure that it's hyper affordable. We also walk around, we talk to our neighbors, and we just try to learn about them. With us doing the murals, we've been able to assist the other businesses. So like, let's say like Ebenezer's Bakery, we got them a front facade repair as well as a mural on the side of their building.
Awesome.
And eventually, me personally, I want to be able to do like that whole like little corridor right there of Burden Heights right there on Division, and have like everything be shiny. Fable, who was our executive director, he had the idea of a multicultural arts district in Grand Rapids. And, I would love to bring that to life.
Yeah.
Also in our venue, in the basement, we are going to have a venue. It's going to be called The Retort. For those that do not know about the Diatribe, the founders, we got our roots started in nightlife. We ran an open mic for 7 years prior to the pandemic called The Drunken Retort. And it was a rowdy, raunchy, beautiful spoken word show. The emphasis was on like poetry and spoken word, but there was also comedians, there were singer-songwriters, musicians, sometimes just people who come in and just dance. Also in the Emory, we're going to have the Diatribe offices. It's going to be open from the hours of 7 to 3. It's going to be open for artists and creatives or people in the neighborhood that wants to know what they can do to change their environment, right? Their community. So let's say like somebody wants to learn how to do murals. They can come in, they can talk to us, they can go to the visual art studio that we have in there and be able to talk to somebody. Let's say they want to learn how to slow down their streets. Come in, talk to us. We'll show you where to go in the city, how to fill out the paperwork. We want to make sure that people know where the resources are located at. Not to mention, we want to have an open space for other artists and creatives that want to work with the Diatribe. They can come in, they can use the space. We want to grow our community together. One of the things that I've been saying a lot is we want to uplift the community without displacement. And I definitely think it can be done. Like, people need to know how to become better together. Because when people know better, they do better. And like I said, like, we are walking around, we're talking to our neighbors. Let's say you need healthcare and you don't know about like free to sliding scale healthcare in the city of Grand Rapids. Man, go talk to Exalta Healthcare Systems. It's right there. And let's say like language is a barrier. Go in there and talk to these people, and they will try to help you find an interpreter. They also will pull out a map, and this map is amazing. They have a map in the back, and they put a tack. Oh, you like that? You got a map in the back, and they use a tack to assist with anybody that's trying to find assistance with translation services. And so they have this beautiful map in the back with tacks. and it has one for all the countries that have been in there. So that's awesome. Also, there is
and that's real too, because I mean, I used to teach at a charter school that's no longer operating a middle school anymore in the 49507, and I had a couple of students who had to be the interpreter for their parents because they only spoke Spanish.
And then there's also Catherine's Health Center. I wish that people knew more about them as well. They are a federally qualified health center, and go in there. They have room for a bunch of new patients, and they're not trying to break the bank when it comes to healthcare. So these things are available in West Michigan. And we need to be talking about what is available, because far too often we are let out of conversations, and it's detrimental to our growth in society, also as well as our health. The other thing about the 7 to 3, so from the hours of 7 to 3, we want to be a better organization as well as nonprofit. And so we want to make sure that we are available to our community. From the hours of 3 to 7 or 3 to 8, we're going to be like this third space for students. We want to work with our area students as well as like the schools that we work in, because we're in about 20 to 30 schools a year. And we want to have a space for kids to be able to come and advance their artistry when it comes to like spoken word poetry and writing or activism, and learn about these retail locations that we have. Let's say you want to be an entrepreneur. Well, come over here. Let's talk to these people. Let's see if there's a job available, or let's see what's available in our community. We also have had many community partners and sponsors. We're always looking for those community sponsors and partners. But we want to make sure that people are getting into the workforce a little bit earlier, and that they know what's available. And so we want people to, when they come to us, we want to work on the entire human experience, right? So if you are a student and you're dealing with financial issues in the home, bring your parent down. Let's talk to everybody about finances. Let's see how we can improve together. Let's say mental health has been a barrier. Come through. We're going to make sure that we have our social workers available that we can work with within the community. And let's see how we can change, and let's see what we can learn to change it for not only for ourselves, but just for the community as a whole.
And that's a beautiful thing, because mental health is real and only gets realer the more expensive everything gets. And mental health itself is not cheap.
That part.
Yeah.
And so, as a group, man, we just want to learn and want to make sure that this can be replicated in the future. Uplifting without displacement.
When I hear you say that, and I'm all on board with that, but when there's people out there that are thinking about, well, what's the best way to make money? Their first thought isn't let's put all these services out here for people and make it as cheap as we possibly can. So how does an organization survive when they're trying to provide everything at the lowest possible price to people? Grants, volunteer donations.
I mean, we have grants. We need volunteers. What we need more is communication. People need to know what's available to them and for them in order to be able to utilize these services. One of the best things that I have found that works a lot is when we started doing the listening sessions. When we did the listening sessions, let's say the first one that we did was during COVID. We did the COVID-19 listening sessions, and what we did is we reached out to the demographic of ages 19 to 29. And what we found out is that in our area of just Grand Rapids, there was 14,000 people in that age range, and only 4,000 of them were vaccinated. And so we wanted to know why. So we did a partnership with Kent County Health Department, the CDC, GRAHI, which is Grand Rapids African American Health Institute, and I think I might be missing, and Michigan State University. Okay. And what we did was we ask these people what is going on, and why aren't you vaccinated? And what we found out is that in West Michigan, people do not trust the healthcare systems. They
I
don't
think
trust.
it goes beyond West Michigan, but yeah,
Yeah,
specifically
it goes.
speaking.
Yes, but like, specifically for West Michigan. But what we
Yeah.
found out is that a multitude of these people that are now living here in Grand Rapids, they don't trust the healthcare system in a nationwide basis.
Yeah.
There are a multitude of horror stories. One in particular, what we found out is that we had 3 women associated with the Diatribe that were all going through female anatomy problems all at the same time, and they all had these same symptoms, and all of them were passing out and then having to go to the hospital and going to the hospital multiple times, and then it all being the same thing. And I can't think of the exact term, but I think it was like something like fibroids. And like for all 3 of them to be women of color experiencing this is terrible, and like there's no cures. And what you find out is when you start to pull on that string, you start to learn about the history of just Black women's treatment in the United States healthcare, and how most of like gynecological services was based off of the treatment of slaves, and how they did this without anesthesia. And
even in the 20th century, women were being forcibly sterilized and not being told what was going on, and they just had their uteruses removed.
Man, that part. You talk about what is it called? A Mississippi appendectomy.
Yeah, the Mississippi appendectomy. Yeah.
So you just have all these horror stories that keep coming out, and we're not going to even talk about like infancy in West Michigan and how many young people have died like babies.
Yeah.
And it's a terrible thing to learn about, and then to ask people like, why don't you trust me? And then you find out why they don't trust you, and then you're just like, oh, okay, well, thank you for that information. And it's just like, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
So that's what I want to know as a community. Like, where do we go from here? How do we improve? How do we keep up with I don't want to say the Joneses, I should say the DeVosses, but I mean, how do we keep up with these rising costs and inflations? And like, why are we putting a $116 million amphitheater downtown Grand Rapids when Plaster Creek doesn't have clean water? It's like, these are these questions that I have, and I'm not like pointing fingers at anybody, but like something is terribly wrong.
Yeah.
And
you drive around, just coming up here down Hall Street, there's a couple blocks down, there's what used to probably be a thriving little business center with a couple of different offices, and it's just all boarded up.
I'm tired of seeing these developments that get millions of dollars in tax breaks, and then they have open retail spots, and they are overpriced for the entrepreneur. And so hence us doing the hyper affordable retail locations in our spot, and just giving people a chance. And that's what I want to do. I want to give people more chances. So when you ask me, how do we do these things and these services? And we are learning together at the same rate. Like, I don't know everything, but like what I am willing to do is put in work to learn, and then to make sure that I can like help my fellow neighbor and fellow community person.
And the empowerment behind what you guys are doing too. Cause like the big thing that I take away from all the things that you've been saying so far is we're working with these people, we're partnering with these people, we're pushing people towards this so that they can do it themselves. Mm-hmm. It's not we're going to come in here and make everything all better. We're going to come over here, and if you have questions, we will help you. Yeah.
I mean, one of the first things that we're doing is we're asking these questions with these listening sessions. And then what we take from the listening sessions, we put into practice. Mm-hmm. So we're taking, like, let's take the murals for instance. Each mural has had a listening session.
49507 project murals.
So for the 49507 project murals. So each mural has had had the artist, the business owner, and then the community. They've had neighbors that are going to be around the mural, all invited to have a conversation about what they want to see in regards to that mural. They do them in English as well as in Spanish. And then we also we pay people for their time too. It's usually about $25. And then we have like a snack and maybe or some pizza or something like that. Yeah. But we want to know, like, we value you for your time. And like, it normally takes like maybe like 30 minutes to an hour. So, I mean, you get that, a meal, and then your voice is being heard, and then you get to see what is said as far as your voice goes.
Yeah.
That's what's been like a pivotal need for our work. And I'm just extremely happy about it. And it's awesome when you get to see it put in the practice, in the play. And then like when you see a mural that comes to life, and then you're like, oh man, I suggested that, right?
Yeah.
Or this portion was like, that was all me. It just brings people together knowing that every voice is heard.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Bedrock and I are supposed to be doing an event on June 20th with the Diatribe. That one's going to be at Broadleaf Brewing Company.
Oh, nice.
I believe the time is going to be like 6:30 to 8:30. Yeah, come check it out, man. Diatribe does a beer release with Broadleaf.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. Shout out to Chris Spalding. She's the owner of Brewery Vivant and Broadleaf with her husband. And, shout out to Ward and Trevor over there at Broadleaf, and, New Holland Brewing Company, man. We're going to be doing our fundraiser there, or the annual fundraiser. I'm sorry. The annual fundraiser. That's going to be Sunday, April 28th. On Friday, August 2nd, we're going to be at Garfield Park. That's our student showcase. In September, on September 26th at Wealthy Theater, we're going to be doing Disruptive Dialogue. Nice. And then November 8th of this year, I believe at the Pyramid Scheme, we're going to be doing our grand showcase, where we bring in national talent and our Diatribe teaching artists. And then we're also going to have a dance party at the end. So we're going to have some great events coming up this year. We hope that you tune in. Make sure you check out the Diatribe, www.thediatribe.org. I am Foster, aka Autopilot. I don't know how much longer I'm gonna have that nickname, Autopilot. I feel like I've been on it for a long time, and now I'm trying to take more control of my life and destiny. And that name, it wielded a lot of power when I needed it. But now it feels like I kind of came out of a fog. And my daughter's healthy, and the Diatribe needs some growth. And, the name doesn't fit who I am anymore. And so I'm trying to figure out this next phase.
Kind of the issue. What do you guys do right now to get yourselves seen and get yourselves heard, besides just, putting it out on your social media and stuff like that?
Besides social media, it is a lot of word of mouth. It's also like going into schools. We're in about 20 to 30 schools a year. And so, the kids get to see us. The kids get to talk about us. We're on the news. We're on podcasts. We are also throwing events. We slowed down events last year because we were working incredibly hard on our capital campaign, and now we're getting back to events. So our first event is going to be Sunday, April 28th, from 2 to 5 p.m. at New Holland Brewing Company. 2 to 3 will be the social hour. Then we have the entertainment. So you'll get to hear a national artist. You get to hear Diatribe teaching artists. You get to hear our students, which is our backbone and our love and our passion. And it's a great show. New Holland always provides some amazing food, and tickets are going to be $50 this year. This is the first year that we are charging for our fundraiser, but we are trying to make more funds. Last year we focused.
Going back to that question of how does a group survive when everything you do is trying to make it as cheap as possible for people.
Yeah, and this is the first time that we're actually charging. But what we've been doing is reaching out for more sponsors to help with that cost. And but we do need to make money for the nonprofit, and like we are in the business of making money to provide for our community. And this is one of the ways. Also, like during 2020, man, like when most nonprofits were kind of like buckling at the knees or just folding completely, we actually grew. We found that the 49507 needed some support, and like there was all these COVID dollars. And what we did was we wrote a grant, and we tried to make it be for just that community, right? The 49507.
Yeah.
So let's say like somebody, the city, they did a great job. I'm not just the city, like public schools, they did a great job making sure that everybody had access to a Chromebook.
Yeah.
They did not make sure that everybody had access to the internet.
That's the thing. Yeah.
So let's say somebody just needed some support some financial support for the internet for their kids. And all they had to do was write like a little letter, and then we got them funds and we just paid the bill directly.
Oh, yeah.
Some people just needed somebody to go to the store for them. All they had to do was come and see us. And then we made sure that we got somebody over there to go to the store for them. Some people didn't want to cut the grass and be outside because they were unsure about COVID. And what we did was we made sure that we found people to assist within the community. And what we did was we reached out to artists and creatives because they were almost totally left behind. Another industry that nobody even talked about, like during COVID, was how many volunteers that hospitals lost.
Yeah.
This is all going to be a huge study that's going to be done on the effects of a pandemic. Now that we are all alive, and now that we are all capable of communicating to each other about the things that, that we lost or that we didn't realize we needed, like especially like face-to-face interactions.
Dude, people got weird during the pandemic, and I feel like
they got recluse.
It's people are just kind of starting to get back to normal, like waving, saying hello to people, responding to people to say hello to you with a smile. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like people got reclused.
Yeah. Well, and you said too, like everybody was kind of scared just to like exist in a community because, man, those first couple of months, I remember we have a park not too far from our house, and our kids, we would take them to play there. One day we were like, well, let's take the kids to the park. And they had it roped off and it said closed by order of the governor. And I was like, man, this is getting weird. Are we all going to die? And people were like, oh, that house on the street has it. Now that house on the street has it. And it was the closest thing to being in like a movie where everybody slowly gets picked off.
With you saying that, like, and I said earlier, like, I was screaming on my back deck during COVID, and I got tired of being on the back deck to be outside. So we moved everything from off of the back deck into the front yard so we could start to see people. And then what we got was an even better community, right? We started to talk to people and started, social distancing in the front yard and having people over. And because we were outside, we're like, yo, this is going to be the safest place. And so, my community, even though my public facing portion of my life got a little bit smaller, my community got better.
Yeah.
I made sure that I cut the grass. Like I have neighbors that have push mowers and they look stupid with their push mower trying to be out there, and I love them though. And they know who they are. I won't have to like call them out or anything. So, but I have the electric mower and I made sure that I go and do this. Also, we had a baby, during 2020. So like we spent 90 days, which is a fucking quarter of 2020 in the hospital, shout out to St. Mary's, right? I was in the 7th grade. My father got sick. He was misdiagnosed for cerebral palsy instead of stroke.
No, that's a big one.
Yeah, that is a huge one.
Misdiagnosis.
Yeah,
because it's strokes. You got to catch early. You got to treat it early.
Mm-hmm. And so, I watched my father deteriorate, right?
I'm sorry, man. That really sucks. I'm truly sorry to hear that.
There are certain things that, that I remember, like I remember saving my father's smile with Bazooka Joe bubblegum, right? And like all of a sudden it strengthened his jaw muscles and then he could talk and then he could swallow all of a sudden. And, I didn't learn that from the speech pathologist. I didn't learn that from anybody in the healthcare. I just looked, I'm like, oh man, this is terrible gum. Here, try it. And it worked, right? And next thing you know, I got my father's speech back and like his mind was still back. But like, my father definitely missed a step. There are certain things that I've missed out on because of my father getting sick, right? Like he was beginning to teach me how to work on a car and like how to do like, certain house repairs. And then
I mean, that was right in that, like, son, you're becoming a man now. I got some stuff to show you period of your life.
Yeah. But I mean, I spent so much time in the, in Hackley Hospital. I remember at one point, I think I actually went into, I counted every door that was at Hackley Hospital and like all the latches, right? And then there are things you do when you are spending so much time in a hospital and like, to have to go through the same thing with my daughter, which is my first kid, my first known kid, right? I always have to give that, man. There was a time in my life, but that's my first child, right? And to see her have to spend so much time in a hospital just to be here and fight these battles, it was surreal. And I just remember just being put back into that portion and then have to be stuck in this room and waiting. And then because my girlfriend, she was also in the hospital because she started to develop what is it called? It's when the placenta starts to break down. And I can't think of the name of it right now. I
can't either.
But that was a wild time. And then, I was into nightlife, right? And I was into bartending and throwing parties and events and hosting open mics.
Well, yeah, like you were saying, everything leading up to the Diatribe was just kind of a group of people that like set up the nightlife stuff.
Yeah, pretty much, man. And like, I thought I was doing all right, man. I had like, several streams of revenue, but all my several streams of revenue all involved people, right? And talking. And then all of a sudden I literally lost my livelihood. I had a lot of time on my hands while my daughter was in the hospital. And so I'd just be, after 9 p.m., I'd be like the only guy in the hospital, and like I couldn't sleep. There was nothing to do. So I'd just go up there and just spend time in the hospital with my daughter on my chest.
Those chairs that turn into beds, and no matter how you sleep in them, there's still draft coming up from underneath. And
yeah, man, terrible. And it's just eye-opening what people have to go through. And, during a pandemic, and to see the people that would drive from, Toledo or from Muskegon or from Traverse City in order to spend time with their kid. And I think we were lucky that we lived across the street from MLK Park, and we got to go to 200 Jefferson, which is, the St. Mary's address. And that was a mile and a half. But at the same time, we had to leave one kid at home to go be with the other kid. And next thing you know, we got a 10-year-old with a cell phone, and or 9, about to turn 10. And it changes everything when you have to go through a medical emergency. And I always tell people all the time, I was like, like people in the United States are a hospital bill away from an act of terrorism. And like, when I think of like John Q and like all these things, and, you look at, people with that big house on the hill, and you ask what it costs, and you think about how many people died in order to get that product, and then you want to overprice for it. It's like, yo, man, this is not uplifting your community at all. We're not confronting the reasons of why people steal. We're not confronting the reasons of why people get sick. We're not confronting these systemic problems that need to be addressed and changed, right? I really love like Well House, right? They tackled homelessness by giving people homes, and then they give people ways of keeping their homes. They give them classes. They give them, access to social services. Some people don't want to read all these things, and they can just go and do these things, there are still people here that are calling the cab company and not using Uber, right? Yeah. But there's, the cab service was horrible in Grand Rapids. And so when Uber came out, when Uber came out, you just thought about like, man, this is way better than this cab company. Forget this cab company. And then you realize like you just X'd out a whole nother group of people that don't have access to technology, or they're scared to start using it because they have these horror stories of identities being taken. And like, so there's this reciprocal thing that happens constantly where we can't keep up with the Joneses because we've been priced out. And like when you start to think about, even access to sports, I wonder how many people would be great at tennis if they weren't outpriced for it, or soccer or hockey. And
hockey is a big, that is expensive.
It's expensive, right? They talk about, oh, well, why aren't there black people doing these sports? And it's like, oh, well, first off, we don't have access to it. You need representation. And like, that's it. If you have these things, if you have access to it, you see how it's done, you get better at it. We could talk about this all day. Here's my origin story. I was born in Detroit on January 31st, 1982 in a blizzard. as a family unit. My parents, they got married 2 days before my first birthday. My dad always said he didn't want to have a bastard child, right? And so, my family, my mother has a very, very religious background, and my father would tell my mother, like, my kids don't have to go in church for 8 hours on Sunday. They don't need to be put in a shift. And so, they always had this kind of like jokes between the two of them. Like, they look completely different, but like together, like, you understood love.
That's beautiful.
I was, my grandparents lived 4 blocks apart from each other. One on Gray, the other one on Lakeview. It was off of Warren. Chandler Park is my home on the east side of Detroit. My favorite Coney Island is Universal Coney Island. If you know, you definitely know.
That's the thing. East side of the state versus west side of the state, Coney, not the same, and people have their opinions.
Oh, absolutely. And then not to mention, man, like, what is up with Grand Rapids businesses that have food that don't have takeout windows and like just drive-throughs? I think that they're missing so much money to be had, and they would get made even more money during the pandemic if we had more of these models to where you could just drive up, get your food, and then bounce.
Yeah.
Grew up in Detroit for a little bit. We moved here by like I was about like 3. And then when I turned 4, my sister was born, and now we had lived in Muskegon. So we started out at Glen Oaks Apartments. I remember my father carrying me on his shoulders because he let my mom have the car. And we walked to our first place, which is 1497 Burton Road in Muskegon, Michigan. And, I loved growing up in Muskegon. I have a lot of friends in my community. Even to this day, I can call almost everybody I went to elementary school directly on my phone, or just hit them up on Facebook real fast. Like, yo, man, can we talk real quick? And they'd be like, yeah. It was, my elementary was called the Home of Happy Children. It was Oakview. My principal's name was Jim McLean. And that guy kind of set the path for me. I was kind of getting in trouble in school, and he was like, yo, man, I think you're just too smart and too bored. And so he made me come into the office and work as his secretary almost. And he was like, yo, type this up, do this. And he just kept me out of trouble. And then the teachers started to realize like, oh yeah, he's smart. He just doesn't want to be bored. And so they just constantly gave me things to do, and it changed.
When you say you got in trouble, I got in trouble all the time, but my thing was I was just super hyperactive.
I had a smart mouth.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got a smart mouth when I got older because I was used to just teachers being very like contentious and confrontational with me. And as I got older, I was like, screw you. You know what I mean? But when I was little, I was just like, meh, sat in the hall a lot.
I definitely had the smart mouth, and I'd let it fly. And, it got me into trouble. And, I wasn't like one of the kids that was like fighting and all this stuff. I think in elementary, I probably got into one fight, and then I didn't fight again until I moved to Detroit full time after graduating from high school.
Which follows with what we know about Detroit.
Yeah. So elementary, my principal, Jim McLean, he kind of set it up for me. I did go to St. Michael's for a year, but I stopped going to that school because a lot of the experiences were the boys were getting in trouble. So I learned about sexism when I was in 6th grade. 7th grade, I went to Steele Middle School. Immersed into orchestra, and I didn't really get the chance to like play too many sports other than like baseball during that time. My mom was definitely afraid of football, but football is king in Muskegon County.
We had the unfortunate pleasure of having to play against one of them in high school, and I think it was like 53-0 at halftime, and then they put all their fourth string guys in and still scored like another 27 points in the second half.
It's a wild place to grow up. And, like the whole state of Michigan is pretty much football minded. It used to be a lot of baseball back in the day. Now it's definitely a lot of football. And, I didn't play football until 9th grade. And when I did, I fell in love with it. And then in 10th grade, I fell in love with swimming. But, like I was saying, in the 7th grade, my father got sick. So, life changed for me. I remember getting that call and then racing to Butterworth Hospital. And like we were traveling so fast that the lines on the highway, you got the divider. It looked like it looked like Star Wars. You know, when they go to hyperspace, that's how fast my mom was driving. Like we stopped dinner and like it all looked like one continuous line. And the like only thing I heard was my mother crying and that my father was not going to be okay. And we got to him and like he walked out of the hospital, but his face was puffy and you know, he acted like everything was okay. And then like a week later, we went to Hackley Hospital and they were like, we still don't know what's wrong. They were telling him it's cerebral palsy. And then, you know, then he had another stroke and, you know, life changed. And, you know, I worked a lot. I had a paper route. I also saw for a little bit and, you know, it was anything to put money into my mom's pocket. And I didn't realize
Going
that.
Back to what you had said earlier, you got to look at why people commit crimes.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And shit, back at that time, if you were 3 strikes with marijuana charges, they would just put you in jail for 20 plus years life. Yeah.
For plant. But it changed, you know. I was also working a hot nail and then just immerse myself in school. So like I would leave for school early in the morning, drop my friends off or I would drop my sister off and then, you know, give my friends a ride home if we didn't have like some kind of practice. But like a lot of times, like the people that I grew up with, we were all playing the same sports. So like I have 4 friends now, Dominic, Ben, and Tony. We all went to the same elementary school. We all played baseball together. We all played basketball together. We all played football together. We lived down the street from each other. We'd ride home together. And now we're all living in the Grand Rapids area. And 3 of us had a baby in 2020. And then the 4th had a baby in 2021. And so, you know, like we are still continuing down this path. We were all together for the U of M game right before the national championship. Just that's our friendship, you know, and how we grew up. I have other friends, you know, like I said, from elementary that I can just call. And, you know, I've been blessed to not burn bridges that way. Yeah. You know, and then high school, man, it was cool. Oh, and 8th grade, I got the Wade H. McCree scholarship, minority scholarship, so I could go to Grand Valley. Oh, yeah. And, you know, like I said, my principal, Jim McLean, he kind of laid it out for me so that I could be prepared for school. And so he made sure that I was constantly working towards some kind of achievement. So I was playing.
Oh, I want to know real quick, too, with someone who does as much as you do, it's not real clear what you might have studied there.
Oh, so as far as what?
At Grand Valley. What was your...
So Grand Valley State University. I actually did 3.5 years of engineering studies, and then I decided I didn't want to sit in a cubicle and just answer math questions for people. Right. So I was like, it was not going to happen. So I ended up switching over to communications. Okay. And that was after I went to Wayne Community College for a little bit. I ended up going back to Grand Valley because my father got sick. That's you'll understand like the reoccurring theme of watching my father deteriorate. There were multiple times where, you know, he was in the hospital. He'd be in the hospital for longer than 3-month stints, and you know, hence me, you know, constantly giving my mom money because she was working all the time. She was the head of the house, and then I got my license early so I could help bring him to appointments and to drop my sister off, and man, it
really thrust you into adulthood there without
absolutely, man.
Without any training wheels.
Yeah, that part. I stayed in Grand Valley Apartments, and I loved it. Threw parties there too. Had a lot of fun, probably more fun than I needed to, but like I was also away from, you know, multiple years of caretaking for my family and like doing all these things, and
everyone else is just being an idiot. You were like letting loose a little bit.
I was definitely letting loose. Yeah. You know, I tried to focus a little bit, but you had a lot of freedom. And, you know, in engineering, I can definitely say now that I wasn't equipped to take engineering. Like when I was at school, the things that I really wanted to do, I wanted to learn how to work on cars and how to work on houses and plumbing and, you know, trades. And, you know, they were like, oh man, you're smart, just do computers. And now I hate doing computers, and all I want to do is learn how to work on houses and cars. And I want to learn things that I can pass on to my daughters. Yeah. And I felt like I did not get that in schools. I wish they would have asked me way more questions. I also wish that I would have been way more vocal than what I was. I was just trying to escape the realism of life and financial instability and like, even though I say financial instability, like, we traveled all the time. We were up and down 96. There's not a person that can tell me where they're from, and if it's off of 96, I can't tell them the exit.
Yeah.
So you were talking about Lansing. You want me to talk about 104, Cedar Holt. You want to talk about 101, MLK, Eden Rapids, like whatever you want to talk about. Like, I can tell somebody how to get to where they're from.
Yeah. Speaking of 104 exit Cedar Holt, there is a really good Vietnamese pho place right over there, next to the Jersey Giant, if anybody's ever out there.
I like that one. Is that by the Valvoline?
Yes. Yeah. Just down the street a little bit from the YMCA.
So you see, that's how much we've been up and down the highway, and like, we would just literally stop and like go to a different place. I grew up exit 77. Shout out to those people in Portland. That was like one of my favorite stops, because they had the Big John's truck stop, and they had a burger that was the size of your face. And I will always remember that. And then, exit 104, they had the White Castle, which is now the Big John's Steakhouse now, and it's across the street from Coney Island. Mm-hmm. So so I left school after Grand Valley. Like, I was doing 3.5 years towards an engineering degree. And then, my mother was about to go through bankruptcy. So, I left and, started making money. I was working at Mr. C's Deli. Shout out to the Catalfio family. Mm-hmm. I worked at every store, because of the relationship my cousin had with that family. And she worked for them from when she was like 16 to almost like 25. They helped her like pay through to go to like Lansing, MSU. And, I worked for them, and then I started lifeguarding when I was there, my favorite job of all time. And then I worked at Greektown Casino.
That sounds like on the surface a pretty good job. For the most part, you get to sit and not exert yourself too much. Mm-hmm. You get to watch all the girls or guys, whatever you're into, in their bathing suits. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Shout out to my Arabic friends, and like, I used to make some jokes, right? My Arabic and my Chaldean friends, because like, some of them will wear the hijabs, but they wear the long suits, and I'd be like, man, you can't not wear that swimming, and you know how much heavier you are trying to go swim, and you know how heavy it is to pull somebody out that weighs an additional 50 pounds.
Yeah.
It's a lot. But there were some scary moments in lifeguarding. I remember having to blow the whistle twice. And then you have to jump in, and then that means that somebody's unresponsive, and you have to pull them out, and you have to, you get ready to do mouth to mouth, and, you pump on them, and then all of a sudden they start breathing, and like, all of a sudden you brought them back to your friends. So, I had a situation like that. Also, a couple of my other lifeguard friends had a situation like that. And, it's definitely life-changing. But I also worked at Greektown Casino. You want to talk about driving any car you could think of from the year like 2004 to 2007. It was absolutely incredible. I was also there when the Super Bowl was in Detroit.
Oh, nice.
Living there, Detroit is a 24-hour town. Mm-hmm. You could do a lot of things. You'd meet a lot of different people. You learn about artistry. You get to see the hip hop shows, the underground shows.
So many great places for shows there. I used to love going to St. Andrews Hall.
Oh yeah, I was right down the road from that.
Nice.
And then I lived in downtown Detroit as well, by the Sunoco gas station right off of the highway. I was over off of Palmer, I believe.
Okay.
And
my sister used to live. She did Teach for America, and she was teaching in Detroit at I think it was the Langston Hughes Academy. Shout out to the Langston Hughes Academy.
Nice.
And yeah, she and a couple other of the teachers had a place that was just a couple blocks from the Detroit Institute of Art.
Yep, I was right down the road from that as well.
Yeah.
Not too far from Wayne State Community College, or I'm sorry, Wayne State University.
Yeah, that's right. Because I went to a bar with my sister right across the street from Wayne State.
it was an amazing time living in Detroit. I met a lot of friends. I have those friends. I have those friends that I grew up with that lived in between the four blocks that my grandparents lived at. I have one of my buddies recently just visited me. His name is Emory, and he worked at the he was lifeguarding, and he worked at the casino with me, and so I have some of those friends as well. And it was a beautiful time, and I needed it until it was time for me to bounce. I was either working, getting money, hanging out, or just sleep.
Yeah.
And the time came after I helped my mother get out of bankruptcy. The time came for me to move back because my father was going to the hospital a lot, and I just needed to be closer. My mom needed some more support, and so I moved back with my friends in Wimbledon Apartments over in Granville, and I started working at a bar.
You weren't the guy that set the place on fire, were you?
Negative.
Okay.
No.
somebody in one of those units started a fire a couple of years back.
Negative. And so, moved back to Grand Rapids in about like 2007, 2008. I was working at Gardella's. I did that for quite a while. I was bouncing, worked at the Woods, throwing parties. I also bartended at a country club. And, I met this guy named Chip Vicious. And in 2008,
that's a name.
Yeah, we created the hip hop group Gray Theory, and we had some success, man. We sold out quite a few shows here, and I was also working for like AT&T here, and I met a lot of people through AT&T and through bartending and throwing parties and events, and then in 2013 I also threw. I started the original Back to the 90s party with my friends AB, Super Dre, Comp, Snacks, and Brandon Humes. And
shout out to AB. I just talked to him the other day at the Gramatones opening.
That's what's up. I just saw that photo. And it was just me asking my friends to do an event, and that event brought us a lot of success. Like we have over 28 to 30 like consecutive sold out parties at the Pyramid Scheme. We have packed out.
And the Pyramid Scheme is not a small place either, for the people that don't know.
Absolutely not. So it's 420 people, and we sold that out over like 27 times. We also we done 20 Monroe. We brought the show to Muskegon at Unruly Brewing. We brought it to Holland. We also brought it to Detroit at the Hopcat, and like we started to have this party where everybody that was around our age could go and not worry about fights and not worry about anything. Like you came to this party, like you couldn't even be a wallflower because the music was so good. Like you had to dance. And we were doing that. And during the same year of 2013, I also started the Drunken Retort, myself and Fable. And then in like 2014, we brought on Gleason. We also did the Drunken Retort Detroit.
Shout out to Gleason. Gleason, come on the podcast. I've been trying to get you for like a year. Come on.
I'll pass the information on. We'll get them. And then in 2015 we did the Drunken Retort Detroit, and so we had that going for a few years. And then we also had one in Kalamazoo called Put Up or Shut Up. So then we created like our own little circuit. So we had the Drunken Retort, on Sundays you would have the Drunken Retort Detroit. On Mondays you'd have Drunken Retort Grand Rapids, and then on Tuesdays you'd have Put Up or Shut Up in Kalamazoo. And so we created this tour. So a lot of the poets and singers and songwriters, we started to create this network, and we had this social capital of people coming to the show. And then we also had
throw back to the Kid Kane episode, because she was talking about around that time was when everybody kind of started to get together, because there was like an absence of anything like a poets union, and it was very much like dog eat dog. Everybody was trying to like, no, you can't have this opportunity. I want this opportunity. But then around that time, people started kind of coming together. Yeah. Probably, I guess, just in the pre-Diatribe days, and going like, we can all do this together.
I mean, it was a beautiful thing to see, talent, right? So like you had Put Up or Shut Up on Tuesdays, and then on Wednesdays you had Smoke and Spoken Word with Antonio Taylor. Azizi Jasper used to run that one, who's also a member of the Diatribe, and he passed that one to Antonio. And now, Antonio, he teaches some of the classes with the Diatribe. He's a teaching artist. And then Kid Kane and Bree, they had their show at Creston. And there was a place for people to go, and also Wayne Bowerman, he had an open mic as well at Mayan Cafe, and so you had a lot of people being able to express themselves in the city, and then that all got canceled by the pandemic, so it was a wild time, man.
All right, I don't want to keep you too much longer because I said I wouldn't keep you more than an hour, and right now we're rolling just over it.
Well, we're good, man. You said you got to edit anyway, so yeah,
okay.
We'll be okay.
Just want to make sure that you don't have a heart out. I know you got kids and stuff. Talk about the new open mic that you got going on.
Oh, so it's not up yet, but my partner on this is going to be Caleb Rainey, aka the Negro Artist. And man, do I give the name? All right. Be on the lookout for the House of Words open mic.
House of Words.
Yep. We're still shopping around for an actual home for it. But hopefully within the next, month, we'll have that rolling. And then I can't wait to introduce people to this new concept for an open mic. I will give away a little bit. There will be 12 slots, and you will get 5 minutes to rock. So if you are a musician or not, we're not going to be waiting 12 minutes for you to set up.
Okay.
So once the clock starts, we're going to ask you, are you ready to perform? And as soon as you say yes, there will be a clock that has 5 minutes. And as soon as we hit that 5 minute mark, that's your time for setup to get up there. If you got to give a filibuster or whatever, you talk. And then after that, you're done. If you go over that time, you cannot pass on to the next round.
You're going to have somebody coming out with a broom like they do on the...
I mean, we don't know.
Get out of here.
broom, hook, firing squad. We're not sure yet, right? But we, and then after that, we will have 4 people that move on to the next round, and then they will be able to get a 10-minute slot. I don't want to give away too much because I want people to understand what will happen as soon as we get our social media up and running and get our t-shirts and
but it's kind of an open mic meets battle of the bands, and it's not just spoken word, it's not just poetry.
Well, I won't say it's battle of the bands by any means. What we want to curate is we want people to be ready to perform and to come with that heat. And so let's say somebody like Amanda Smalls, who is like the short shit slam champion, right? 5 minutes is a lot of time for them. They can get up there and they can do 5 poems. Whereas me, I average like poems that are about like 2.5 minutes. I'd be able to spit like 2.
Yeah.
And then there are other people that have, we had a guy named Epic Poem Guy that would have like 5 and 6 minute poems. Well, he'd have to cut it short a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But we want people to come in there with this polished material and to get it out. And then if they make it to the next round, like be ready to perform.
Yeah.
So it's going to go from 12 people down to 4 for the next round. But when you get to that, if you make it to one of those 4 slots for the next round, then you get 10 minutes to perform. So like a solo set. Our slogan for the show is going to be "Come Kick It at the House." And I'm excited about that. So when we had the drunken retort and somebody got boo belled, and we had 3 bells. So if somebody got 3 bells, we would yell, "Get the fuck off the stage." We will no longer yell out, "Get the fuck off the stage." It's not going to be like that. But one of the things that would be said during that time is like, you ain't got to go home, but you can't spit here. And then we'd ask them to step off the stage. But yeah, we want to create these sharp individuals that can go and perform and keep people, captivated. There's this thing in Gladiator. It said, "Win the crowd, win your freedom." And that's what we want for people to come in with that. Like, yo,
yeah.
Like you get this crowd on your side and see what happens. My favorite rapper is Black Thought from The Roots. He always says,
so good, man. I love The Roots. I just got to say this now since you brought it up. Going back to me talking about my military experience. When I was in Iraq, I would run every other day and lift every other day. I've gotten away from that now, obviously. I'm a little soft, but I ran probably 80% of the time to Phrenology, just front to bottom. That's one of the
amazing album.
One of the best top to bottom albums. Like, there's not a bad song in there. There's one or two I might skip over if I'm just listening, but man, if you just want to listen to an hour of something that you don't have to go through while you're running, while you're cleaning, amazing album.
Phrenology, it was definitely the album that I was thinking about. So he said, you should see where your talent will take you. You might fuck around and finally make it. And I thought that was...
Wait, is that if you want to be something in life?
Yeah.
You ain't gonna get it.
Without, no, you're thinking about a little bit of sacrifice. Keep telling me, yo, you need the Waters. I think that's the Waters.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think that, you know, Black Thought is like your favorite rapper's favorite rapper. First off, but that, you know, I am a little tired of people not or only listening to the genres that we grew up on. You know, I feel like that's like stunted creativity, right? Like you can grow with your artists, but you also have to realize that there are other artists that are up and coming. And so like when people are saying like they don't know what they're listening to now, I'm like, yo, are you doing your Spotify right? Are you doing your Apple Music right? Are you saying the things that you don't like? And like you have to like grow with this technology, and like you have to put your listens in, and you have to, if you don't like something, don't listen to that shit.
Yeah.
There's way too much music. Like and you know, this is like one of the problems that I have with like mainstream music is, you know, we act like this planet is not filled with 8 billion people that have all these things, these different ideas and different sounds to make. And like, we keep getting the same few artists. Some of them are absolutely incredible, but like when I think of like somebody like Drake, who has a team, and I think about somebody, you know, that like Prince, right? And Prince went out there and then he wrote songs for other people and then wrote for himself and then collaborated.
He wrote Nothing Compares by Sinead O'Connor. A lot of people don't know that.
Hey, I'm just saying. And I'm not dissing Drake by any means, but I'm just saying I have a great respect for somebody that can go out and do a lot of things by themselves, right? When you think about somebody like Beck, right, and how many instruments he can play, and you know, he made a whole album like that, and Remy Shand, right, and like cartoons, and like
you could almost call Beck like the poor man's Prince. He can he can do it all, but he doesn't make it look. He makes it look like he didn't even try, but like then if you actually try to reproduce what he does, it's like, oh shit.
Yeah. There's some effort in that.
Yeah.
Right? And so, man, I love artistry, man. And I love what everybody can do. Right. I am not the biggest fan of karaoke, because I feel like
the ancient art of karaoke.
You know, I feel like everybody has a talent, and you just have to figure out what it is, right? And you can nourish it. And some people are octopus, right? They got their hands in all these different things that they're good at.
Yeah.
But like when I think of somebody that is like, yo, man, like living their purpose and know that they're absolutely incredible at this one thing, and they give it all and leave it on the page or the stage or whatever, and what they accomplish, I am blown away. I will say this: the only time that I've ever appreciated karaoke is when my cousin Simone, who my daughter's middle name is after, when she got married, she was on the University of Michigan's a cappella choir, and they did a karaoke battle at her reception. And they rented a mansion in Chicago and had like a piano, and they would have somebody get up there and play the piano, and then they had teams already set up, and they did this karaoke battle. And you want to talk about the wildest shit you could ever see about karaoke, and me standing on the side of the couch rooting on my cousin and her team. Like, it was incredible. That was the first time I'd actually like seen like karaoke like be hype, right? And like me get excited, and like it let me know that that there's something out for everybody, and it made me have an appreciation for it going further. But you know, some people just have to be introduced to a different style or a different thing, and in order for you to see its greatness.
Yeah.
poem allowed me to finally talk about the things that I was going through, and my family didn't realize the extent of how it affected me. My father being sick, and I remember when I did this poem, them just crying, and also I remember my mom saying, "Damn, you are a writer," and so here it is. It's called a children's book. No children's book has ever started off when Dad got sick that I can think of. Not the Berenstain Bears, Goosebumps, Highlights for Children, Tiki Tiki Timbo, No Sarimbo, Charibari Rucci, Pip Perry Pimbo, nothing. In fact, that book didn't have a father, only the old man, but I had a father. He was strong and black. A husband, a brother, a cousin, a friend, an uncle, a neighbor, a provider, a protector, a hustler, a godfather, and a listener. He was also a diabetic, dealing with pills and strokes, defibrillators, heart attacks, depression, anger, sadness, cigarettes, low potassium, leg cramps, surgeries. He had a bad equilibrium like a broken seesaw, waterway issues, and amputation. Yet here I am reflecting back on my kid-friendly education instead of how my life changed because my father's did. So let me write a real version of my book on life. I can't draw, but picture this as the beginning. I knew something was wrong. When my mother answered the phone, tired as she always is, half asleep, half drowsy, but awake enough to make sure my sister and I didn't set the house on fire while cooking dinner. "Hello," she said, followed by her legs giving out like kicking a chair from underneath you, slumping into her favorite napping place, breathless, in shock, whispering, "Oh God, no, I'm leaving now. It's hard to hear your mother say, 'Help me up, crutch.' I mean, son." No children's book ever started off with when my father was misdiagnosed for cerebral palsy instead of stroke. No book ever started off when my father's cane turned into a walker and then into rolling circular legs. No book ever started off with when my father could no longer take the stairs to see me perform. No book ever started off with when I had to change my father's diaper, or how many different ways I could show him how to tie a tie now. And no book ever started off with, why is my father's face sagging? And no book would tell you how I used Bazooka Joe bubblegum to strengthen my father's jaw muscles into a smile, into the words, "I love you, I'm okay," and the doctors, "Wow, you're improving rapidly." See, I don't know the book that would tell you that from 1497 Burton Road in Muskegon, Michigan to 100 Michigan Street Northeast in Grand Rapids, Michigan, that 1,929 seconds is the time that it takes to stop dinner, get in a car, and race to Butterworth Hospital. See, 1929 is also significant because it was the start of my family's depression and economic hardships and how we battled to stay afloat. And no children's book would ever tell you how your hands will continue to tremble when you hold needle-like objects like a pen, your passion, your escape, and how you'll flash back to the last morphine shot you gave your father while holding his hand as he passed, looking into your eyes as the defibrillator constantly electrocutes his failing heart. Beep. No children's book ever shared such intimate, devastating memories like P, beep, T, beep, S, beep, D, beep. But I will always love and remember my father reading them, no matter how much they didn't prepare me. Beep, I love you. Beep, goodbye. Beep, flatline. Thank you. That is intense, bro. Thank you, man. Yeah, man, I wrote that one, man.
Damn, that's intense.
It was about 2016.
Whew.
It was
Thank you for sharing that.
You know, I miss my dad. He was a funny dude, man, and like, you know, he showed growth towards the end. Like, I remember my dad being what I thought was like pretty homophobic at first, right? And like, you know, not caring about, you know, he would use the words, you know, like he would use words like faggot, right? And I remember him changing. There was a kid that went to our church. His name was Vincent, and I remember some other members of the church were, you know, talking very derogatory about Vincent, and my dad said, "Yo, that's a good kid. If you say one more bad word about him, I'm gonna blow your shit out, right? I remember my dad threatening somebody in the church to just like
that's a horrifying sentence too. I'm gonna blow your shit out.
Blow your shit out. I remember my dad just saying like he would hurt these people and put his hands on them, and this was after my dad was with a cane and walking around like he was really ready to protect this kid.
Yeah. Really putting himself out there at that point, because if somebody was like, "Oh, what are you going to do?" Like if they really wanted to get handsy with him.
Yeah. And I remember my dad, he never used the word, faggot after that. And, and my dad was a funny person though, and like, I remember he would say, leave that kid alone. He's just gay. Right. Or he would be like, he's just a dick squeezer. And I always thought that was like, purely like comical, but to see my dad change, in the end, it always has given me hope because, as a kid that was immersed in school and, taking like all the AP classes, you kind of get separated from, your everyday day-to-day people. And like, I was an academic, and I was a nerd, and, I was also in in the orchestra. And,
what'd you play?
I played upright bass. I started off on the violin. I played upright bass, and then I did do band a little bit. I played the trombone. I played the drums in church if nobody else showed up. But you
look like a tromboner. Oh, all right, sorry.
And I'll take that. It was I was in National Honor Society, man. I was in School of Performing Arts. There are all these things that make you. But I remember, my communications class, it was like all of a sudden I was like, oh man, speaking on a microphone and talking and sharing your words is pretty cool. And like, even when I graduated, I was one of the guest speakers at my graduation.
Nice.
And, it's amazing looking back and seeing like who your influences are and the things that influence you. And to see my father change, it was a beautiful thing. Like my mother, she was a prison guard, and then
so she didn't mess around.
But she was the kindest person on the planet, man. Like, has a smile of gold. But like, she also knew how to protect herself. And,
yeah. Well, I mean, my dad used to work for the Department of Corrections, but in the electronic monitoring. So people that had to wear the ankle bracelets, he worked in the department that kind of kept an eye on those guys. Called, hey, I can't read your thing. But he talked to people that had moved from being prison guards into that job and just, transferred out of that. And they're like, man, people throw shit at you. They throw piss at you.
Yeah.
You walk up and somebody will be jerking off and they'll be like, hey, this one's for you.
Yeah.
Like, oh, shit.
Yeah. And so my mother was a woman. And so I've heard some of those horror stories. I've also, seen her be attacked. I've also seen like, some of my friends that work at the prison now. And when that industry even opened up in Muskegon, like, Muskegon County is large. Muskegon City proper is not, but because, it's so sports driven. I got to meet a lot of my community because of sports. A lot of, the parents all worked at the prison. Like they had to learn in Jackson and then, in, what's it called? And then Ionia. And then when the Muskegon prison opened, all of a sudden you had this whole new industry that was booming. And so I have a lot of friends, parents that, work there. And I told you my friends earlier, Dominic, Ben, and Tony. So, Dominic and Tony's parents also worked at the prison with us. And, or with my parents. And so, you have that kind of legacy. And so like, if you got in trouble, everybody knew in Muskegon. And, yeah, so there's just a lot, man. And like, like you and I could keep talking for forever and ever, man. But I definitely want to leave people with, something a little kinder, than, just some of the problems that I had to go through.
Sure.
So I'm looking for a good poem right now to end this. Yeah, man, I wrote that one, man. It was about 2016. It was, I miss my dad. He was was a funny dude, man. And like, you know, he showed growth towards the end. Like I remember my dad being, what I thought was like pretty homophobic at first. Right. And like, you know, not caring about, he would use the words, like he would use words like faggot. Right. And I remember him changing. There was a kid, that went to our church. His name was Vincent. And I remember some other members of the church were, talking very derogatory about Vincent. And my dad said, yo, that's a good kid. If you say one more bad word about him, I'm gonna blow your shit out. Right. I remember my dad threatening somebody in the church to like, just like, yeah, I'm gonna blow your shit out. I remember my dad just saying like he would hurt these people and put his hands on them. And, this was,
that's a horrifying
after my
sentence
dad
too.
was
I'm gonna
with
blow
a
your
cane
shit out.
and walking around like he was really ready to protect this kid. Yeah. And I remember my dad, he
really
never
putting
used the
himself
word
out there at that point, because if somebody was like, "Oh, what are you going to do?" Like they really wanted to get handsy with him.
And my dad was a funny person though, and like I remember he would say, leave that kid alone. He's just gay, right? Or he would be like, he's just a dick squeezer. And I always thought that was like, purely like comical. But to see my dad change in the end, it always has given me hope because as a kid that was immersed in school and, taking like all the AP classes, you kind of get separated from your everyday day-to-day people. And like, I was an academic and I was a nerd, and, I was also in in the orchestra, and I played upright bass. I started off on the violin. I played upright bass, and then I did do band a little bit. I played the trombone. I played the drums in church if nobody else showed up. I was in National Honor Society, man. I was in School of Performing Arts. There are all these things that make you. But I remember, my communications class was like all of a sudden I was like, oh man, speaking on a microphone and talking and sharing your words is pretty cool. And like, even when I graduated, I was one of the guest speakers, at my graduation. And, it's amazing looking back and seeing like who your influences are and the things that influence you. Nice. And, to see my father, change, it was a beautiful thing. Like my mother, she was a prison guard, and then, but she was the kindest person on the planet, man. Like, has a smile of gold. But like, she also knew how to protect herself, and
so she didn't mess around. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, my dad used to work for the Department of Corrections, but in the electronic monitoring. So people that had to wear the ankle bracelets, he worked in the department that kind of kept an eye on those guys. Called, hey, can't read your thing. But he talked to people that had moved from being prison guards into that job and just, transferred out of that. And they're like, man, people.
So my mother was a woman. And so I've heard some of those horror stories. I've also, seen her be attacked. I've also seen like, some of my friends that work at the prison now. And when that industry even opened up in Muskegon, like, Muskegon County is large. Muskegon City proper is not, but because it's so sports driven. I got to meet a lot of my community because of sports. A lot of the parents all worked at the prison. Like they had to learn in Jackson, and then in what's it called, and then Ionia, and then when the Muskegon prison opened, all of a sudden you had this whole new industry that was booming. And so I have a lot of friends, parents that, work there. And I told you my friends earlier, Dominic, Ben, and Tony. So, Dominic and Tony's parents also worked at the prison with us, and, or with my parents. And so, you have that kind of legacy. And so like, if you got in trouble, everybody knew in Muskegon. And, so there's just a lot, man. And like, like you and I could keep talking for forever and ever, man. But I definitely want to leave people with, something a little kinder than, just some of the problems that I had to go through. So I'm looking for a good poem right now to end this. But do you have any other questions, though?
Sure. Cool.
Okay.
No, not especially.
Man, I don't know where.
Covered all the stuff I really wanted to, and then a lot of stuff that I wasn't even thinking about too.
Okay. You want my poem about my daughter, or you want a poem about my girlfriend?
No rush either, because like I said, I can just edit it and make it sound like you found it in 2 seconds.
What do you feel like? Let's do the one about my daughter.
Dealer's choice, man.
Let me tell you
what's speaking to you right now.
Story about my daughter. So my mother, cool. She still lives in Muskegon, and she took her to the Frauenthal Theater to watch Cinderella. This happened last year, maybe around like October or something. I don't believe so.
Okay. So
she took her to, this production of Cinderella at the Frauenthal Theater. And when she got home, I was like, Josie, how was it? She's like, yeah, it was okay. I was like, well, what'd you learn about it? What'd you think of it? And she said, Cinderella ain't got no daddy. And that was her synopsis. And I, I love the simplicity of it. And like, she basically, said, oh, what's Cinderella about? Somebody growing up without a dad. And, I love my daughter, and I appreciate that portion of her. So here's a poem for her. It's called Baby Girl. Are you going to call me dad or G or foster or father, papa, paw, daddy, pops, pop? Baby girl, call me yours. Call me anytime. Call me anything except for absent. You, Josie Simone, are my miracle. Everything about you is exceptional. I don't care who notices my bias. It's in my smile. I wear it proudly. It's in my eyes as I stare at you. It's magnified by the tears I shed seeing you every day, not in the NICU. I can admit that I cry every day, especially when I see your keloids from all the needles that touched you, that continue to touch you. I hold back from swinging on doctors and nurses that make you cry only because I think they're trying to help you. Heck yeah, my heart is on my sleeve. It's decorated like the tattoo I have in your name. The sleeve on these arms that wrap you in love every day. It's been less than 5 that I haven't seen you, NICU and all, baby girl. You have a smile that the universe made. People space out when you share it. The sun competes with your eyes. I can never tell which one is brighter. When you were born, you screamed, but it was more like a squeak, the nickname that I call you. You have weird toes, but they're pretty. You have one curl, but it's beautiful. You have stinky poops. Like you're going to make your father puke kind of poops. You make duck lips and a surprise face when you have to poop. And sometimes when you pee, I think that you're aiming at me. You smear food and you bottle all over me. And I don't understand how when I have 50 burp cloths, you hate needles and amoxicillin makes you projectile vomit. We learned that one the hard way. You also look like a rotisserie chicken at birth. You always lay your head close to my irregular heartbeat. You were 1 pound, 8.9 ounces and had to go under the blue light. Baby girl, since the beginning, you've been rare. I named you after my grandfather, but you are your own entity. You came into this world 3 months early, but on time, fighting. You made bad days a small problem. You left the NICU and came home to a parade. You got my family talking again. You got me to quit smoking. You made a grandma get her license again. You made Stella a big sister. She can get you to smile. You made your mother have 2 girls. She can make you laugh out loud. Sometimes I get jealous because I am the funnier parent. You turned my sister into an aunt. You make my mother call every day to check on you. Baby girl, you are life-changing. You bring everyone together. I could go on and on about you, and I will because you made me a father. And I want to be a great one, and then a grandfather. I promise I'll be the best.
feel like all of the things that you've talked about a little bit here that that put you under, abnormal stress and pressure, is that the source for where all of your wanting to give back comes from? Have you always had that, or did it change you or intensify what you were already doing?
I am a person that loves my family, loves my friends, loves my community, and I want to make sure that we are, to quote Kendrick, that we're gonna be all right. And in order to do so, sometimes you have to do things that make you uncomfortable, or you have to face these hurdles in life. And I just want people to know that you don't have to face these hurdles alone. And I think, we have the internet, right? And I think a lot of us have been using it wrong. Like, we are supposed to connect with each other.
Not getting pissing battles on the internet or the social media comments. And
yeah, we have to come together, right? Because we are all sharing, this area, right? Earth is an area, right? We are all sharing this area together.
One gigantic town that we are all citizens of.
And and on a microcosm, you have to share your house with other people. You have to share your house shares the street. Your street is the block. The block is the neighborhood. The neighborhood is, it goes on and on and on. You think about the ripple effect of throwing that stone. And so I want that ripple effect to be one of positivity, because positivity is contagious.
Yeah.
And if we keep this contagious positivity going, there's no telling what we could create. I guess, man, the only thing I want for people is to be better, right? Whether that's, health, physicality, financially. I think we need to take a long look at the things that we are shown versus the things we aren't shown. And by that are one of the things to include to that. I think about this Bruce Lee quote: instead of giving your kids the things that you never had, why don't you teach them the things you never knew?
Ooh,
and
that one hits hard.
Yeah, that one hits very, very hard. And so now I'm trying to take that approach and to both of my girls, right?
Yeah.
And to my nephews and to my family and to my life. And when I think about that, it's like, all right, now what do I need to learn? And so I'm trying to learn more compassion. I'm trying to learn more of what people need. And I don't want love to be based off of the things that people can get, but based off of what we can do together to improve our lives. And I want to do that by any means necessary, man.
That's a mic drop right there.
I appreciate you, man.
Hey, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank
it's been great talking to you, and hopefully we'll be able to keep this conversation going personally.
Cool. Can I add one other thing?
Absolutely.
I don't want it to be like the faggot. Let's do like, oh man, they dropping F-bombs all the time, man. Like, yeah. Yeah. Watch out for the F-bombs, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, man, I remember my dad, he used them, and then I remember when he stopped.
Yeah, because the Diatribe is also a queer-led organization.
Yep. Black, brown, and queer-led organization. And I never want anybody to think that I'm out here like this, but I definitely want to be able to tell my truths and like to see my father change from, who he was to what he was.
Yeah.
It was an absolutely incredible and beautiful thing. And
Creative Ops does not condone that kind of language, but for the sake of storytelling, especially transformative storytelling like that, I think people will give it a pass.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And my grandfather, his name was Joseph, and he's from the South. His nickname was Josie. And at first when she was going to be born, we were going to call my daughter Josie Merlington, because that was my lady's maiden name.
Okay.
We're gonna call her Josie Merlington, and then we had the name all set. And then one day out the blue, I asked my girlfriend, I was like, "Yo, what do you think about the name Josie Simone Foster?" And she didn't talk to me for a whole day, and then she finally said, "Fine, you named the whole baby." And And so the way
The whole baby.
yeah, you name the whole baby. And the reason that the name came about, I told you that like the middle name is from my cousin Simone, but I spelled it like one of my grade school chums, Simon. But my grandfather, he didn't want to come to my cousin's wedding because she came out of the closet. And, I questioned him on this. I was like, yo, man, you talk a good game about, God and family. And are you choosing religion over your family right now? And my grandfather said, yo, it is better for me to love my granddaughter from afar than to go to her wedding and sit and discuss about things that I personally can't get over, but I still love my granddaughter. I just don't need to be in attendance. And, I can't say whether I agreed with him or not, but I definitely wanted to bring my family together. It's when I came up with that name, Josie Simone, and I thought it was the most beautiful thing ever, for them to be together, even if they can't be together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. All right. Well, everybody, that was Foster. Foster, thanks again, man. It was great talking to you.
Likewise.
All right, everybody, that was Foster. I hope you enjoyed that one as much as I did. We talked a lot longer than that, and I just had to keep it under an hour and a half if possible, so I got it trimmed to the best bits. Thank you, Foster, for coming on. Thank you to the Diatribe for all the things that you guys are doing. And please, everybody, check out the show notes and go support those people. They're doing great things. See you next time. Mwah.